What's going on, guys? So, this whole clavicular situation. So, everyone's talking about it. Everyone is covering, the fact that obviously he ran somebody over and he wasn't remorseful at all. Albeit the guy he ran over was one of his stalkers. So, that, doesn't really help the victim's case. But all in all, I mean, to any sensible person, it's not looking good for clavicular. So, you know, what I want to go over is the ultimate downfall that he will eventually face. So, one thing to kind of observe here is that we have actually seen this before. Okay, some of you may be aware of back in the kind of OG era of the fitness YouTube, uh, stage, whatever you want to call it. Maybe a little bit after the OG era, there's this guy named Connor Murphy, and he basically was the clavicular of back then. So he was taller. He was a really tall guy. He had a good looking face. He took steroids. He took videos of himself hitting on women, and getting numbers. And he would brag about all these women that he was hooking up with. Blah blah blah. Right. And what ended up happening to him? Well, I mean, what ended up happening to Connor Murphy was he ended up going crazy, right? I guess one day he realized that he was balding, and he went off the deep end. And now I think like last I heard or knew about him, he was in like Thailand with Dr. Tony Huge, who's like a really sketchy. He's not a medical doctor. He's actually like a lawyer, but has a technical doctorate or something. And they're doing like weird research chemicals and like steroids, and hanging out with like ladyboys and stuff like that. Just a lot of like sketchy, weird, degenerate, like disconcerting shit. And basically, he went crazy, right? And I think what happens is when people peak really young, and especially the combination of peaking really young combined with, having a very intense peak, it's usually followed by a very intense crash, especially when drugs are involved. Now, in this case with clavicular, he admits that he microdoses meth. Now, the thing with microdosing meth is like, you know how it goes. Like, it starts with microdosing, and then it starts with, maybe a little bit more than microdosing, and then it's just low doses, and then it's medium, and then it's high, and then before you know it, it's a full-blown addiction. And he's using large amounts. I mean, that's just inevitably going to happen if he keeps playing with that. On top of that, he went on steroids in his teenage years. So his endocrine system hasn't even fully developed, and he already destroyed it. So, like, his potential for being able to ever, rely on his natural testosterone in the future is gone. He will never be able to, because he went on so early. It's one thing to wait until you're like 25 or 30 and then go on, like a testosterone cycle or something, and then maybe you want to get off and try to rebound and get your natural test levels back. I think that's way more doable than doing a cycle when you're really young, or in his case, it's not even a cycle. He's just blasting and cruising, right? To take that, to use that term again, that term, I haven't heard that in a long time, but he's blasting and cruising. He's just blasting test all the time. And he's combining that with methamphetamine. And then on top of that, he has this whole, fame issue to deal with. He has stalkers. He has people worshiping him. He's a part of this looks maxing community, which is basically just a bunch of guys who want to look like pretty boys. And, they do weird things, like they hate on like guys who go to the gym, but then like at the same time, they will idolize features on men which can be attained by going to the gym. So there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance there. But they do, like, in all fairness, they do cover, like genetic traits, like skull shape, things you can't change that contribute to attractiveness in a male, or I guess female. So Clavicular, he's like the poster boy for this movement. He's like their god. They all worship him, and he can do no wrong. But we've seen this before with Connor Murphy, and even if we haven't seen this before, we can tell where this is going, right? Like, his meth use definitely contributed to the fact that he ran this guy over, because it's going to make him more aggressive and more impulsive, and he's not going to have as much patience. You know how people on drugs are. They don't have any patience, and they're very irritable, and they're just not pleasant to be around, right? And so if he's microdosing this stuff all the time, it's in his system, and he's just going to act on impulse. And if you're going to push his buttons when he's on meth, that's what's going to end up happening. He's going to run someone over when they try to block his car. And don't get me wrong, I understand that there's like a fame effect. He has this fame and notoriety, and that will help him in court. Like, I would actually be surprised if he served any real prison time, because I'm certain he has money, and he could probably get a good lawyer. And it happened in Florida, so you can get away with like weird shit like that in Florida. So I would actually honestly be surprised if he actually got any real prison time. He might even just get acquitted. Like, he might just like have this whole thing dropped, honestly. Just, if he was like a normie, like kind of normal dude walking the street, he would definitely like face more consequences. But in this situation, nah. So, what's going to end up happening is, since he has this like incredible high that he's experiencing right now, you know, he's on cloud nine. I mean, he looks good. He's on testosterone. It's giving him this confidence boost, and it's making him look even better, because when you're on steroids, that's what testosterone is a steroid. When you're on steroids, you can get away with basically eating however you want, and as long as you don't even really need to put in a little bit of training, but as long as you kind of watch your diet in terms of overall calories and put in a little bit of training, like, you can get a very good looking physique. So that's what he does. And then on top of that, the methamphetamine, it's a stimulant. It's going to also burn some fat. It's going to help keep him lean and focused and energized. And then so these are ways in which he's just pounding those dopamine receptors, right? So he's just pounding those dopamine receptors to the point to where, eventually, even if he keeps pounding those dopamine receptors, he's not going to get that same response anymore, right? And then he's going to have to go for more. So he's going to have to do more meth, or he's going to have to up the dose of test, or he's going to have to do crazier things to get more fame or more views to get him that sort of like dopamine response that he's looking for. So, the ultimate destination for him, I think, is going to be conceptually along the same lines as what happened to Connor Murphy. With every high, especially when you peak really young, with every high, there's going to be an equal low. I think that if you peak later on in life, you have enough wisdom and experience to be able to kind of control the rebound low that's going to follow. But I think, when you're young like that and you're playing with these chemicals, you don't really have any experience with, what you're doing, the long-term ramifications of the things that you're doing, the chemicals you're putting in your body, like especially like an injectable like steroid, testosterone. He's playing with fire basically. And, he's on cloud nine. He's able to, he getting girls' numbers, he has all millions of views, per video that he puts out there. He's hitting on all these random girls, saying these cringe things to them, like, oh, your maxilla looks underdeveloped, or whatever bullshit terms that they use. And he's not even, he's getting positive reception, at least through his perception, right, from his point of view. But eventually, like, his 15 minutes of fame are going to end, right? I really think that's all this is. I don't think he's going to be relevant in the mainstream in a year from now, or even like probably 3 months from now, nobody's really going to be talking about him, but for sure in a year from now. And so, how is he going to continue to keep those dopamine hits at the same level when he doesn't have that same level of exposure and that same level of fame and focus put on him, right? How is he going to be able to cope with that when he doesn't have the same level of feel good in general that he's feeling on a regular basis? Well, he's going to have to up the dose, right? He's going to have to take more meth. He's going to have to do crazier things to get more views. He's going to have to do more testosterone. And the elephant in the room is he's going to age, right? Right now he's young and he's doing testosterone, but like eventually, like years are going to go by, and testosterone ages you quicker. When you take steroids, it ages you quicker. And on top of that, he's just going to age on just naturally. So what happens in 5 or 10 years from now when he doesn't have that like youthful pretty boy look to him anymore, and now he looks old? He'll probably look like he's in his like late 40s once he's 30 because he started taking testosterone so young. He's going to be invisible in the public eye, basically. That's when a lot of these people who peak young turn to even harder drugs. Now, what's harder than methamphetamine? I don't know. Like, obviously, there's like heroin and stuff, but in his case, it might just be upping the dose or mixing it with other hard drugs. So, it's not going to end well for Clavicular. This is a very his run up to fame. Um, it was born out of haste, right? It was born out of haste. His run up to this entire focus that society is putting on him was done in a hasteful way, which means that his fall will be hasteful and precipitous. He's going to have a very deep decline, and it's not going to be fun for him. It's not going to end well for him. I don't think that this legal thing he's going through is going to have any ramifications for him, but I do think that like the overall lifestyle that he's living will have ramifications that will not be so kind to him. So, anyways, those are my thoughts on the whole clavicular situation. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Subscribe. Bye.